quite, if you have to travel from Yiwu to Tangshan, Guangzhou, that's a lot. It takes a lot of energy and effort as well as money, doesn't it?
Yeah, China is big, but like I said, throughout the years, we have developed databases and we've developed systems that help us reduce the amount of time necessary in travel. But sometimes there's no option because we really need to verify the factories. But we have a strong team, we have a capable team, and China is interesting. The infrastructure in China is great in terms of high-speed rail. So travel is not as difficult as it could have been a few years ago.
Right. Now, when you're dealing with your clients back in Africa and dealing with your suppliers and clients in China, what are some of the similarities or differences that you've picked up along the way? And how do you combine the two experiences to make your life much easier?
I think one of the biggest differences is just an issue of culture. And that applies to, the culture of the client, the culture, but also the business culture and how business is done. And it's an issue of managing client expectations, managing supplier expectations. Is changing very quickly. Right now, there are a lot of factories that are being shut down for due to environmental regulations. So if the overseas client does not understand what is happening in the greater Chinese macroeconomy, then they can be miscommunication. So we try to do our best to explain the situation in China to the overseas client. At the same time, the overseas clients, they also have deadlines. They also have ways they do things. So we need to explain what the overseas situation is to the Chinese manufacturers. And that's really where Kamal brings in our value.
Life in China is full of interesting experiences. Many expats, or Laowai as they are known here, love to talk about their unique adventures in the Middle Kingdom, their jobs.
For a guy with a business background, let me say something controversial. I'm not a big fan of business books, actually.
Their culinary preferences.
It's terrible, but it's Gumba Jiding.
And their favorite aspects of living in China.
I didn't really know about Mauritius before I came here. Now I have a lot of friends from Mauritius, and not only them, but like other people from all over the world.
With Nilan Yakopa next.
I'm not racist.
I'm really curious to understand how, because you have to really understand when it comes to, as you mentioned, culture. There are some nuances in different cultures, like China. The way you deal with people here is very different from how you deal with people in Africa. For example, if you had a meeting with a client and you haven't heard from them the feedback from them for like a few months, what does that mean? So how do you get to manage such capitals, and especially in China?
Speak to China itself. I mean, if you look at our company, we have an international team. We have a team of Africans, we have a team of Chinese, we have a team of Europeans. So within our own company, we are dealing with these nuances, and we're dealing with a multicultural environment. But for us, we view it as a strength. So the most we ourselves, by practicing it inside.
I'll take it. All right, Cam.
She'd lie. She'd have to for her own pride.
Look.
Or a bad, difficult dental procedure. The Greeks called drugs pharmakon, a word that means both blessing and curse. It all depends on how we use them. Mescaline, for example, is a psychedelic, which in the West we associate with, the social disruptions of the 60s. But look at the Native American community. There is a church, the Native American Church, where since the 1880s, Native Americans have been using mescaline in the form of peyote, the cactus, which produces it, in their ceremonies. The peyote ceremony is a way to sustain their culture and heal their trauma. So even a psychedelic in the right context, used in a ritual way, can be enormously productive and constructive.
Michael Pollan speaking to the BBC's Michelle Hussein. Austria and the United States are trying to identify what might be causing a spate of unexplained illnesses among staff at the American embassy in the Austrian capital, Vienna. Many of the symptoms are similar to what's become known as Havana syndrome, a mystery brain illness first reported 5 years ago among US officials in Cuba. Earlier, I spoke to the former CIA analyst, Sue Kim.
It's of course not good that we're seeing this, but I guess we need to highlight the fact that it's not something entirely new. The fact that it took place in Austria, of all places, you would think that it's an international scene. There are international organizations like United Nations, IAEA, and so forth. And it's relatively, I think, safe. It's comfortable. So a lot of U.S. diplomats and government workers see this as a good destination to take their families. But of all places, it's happened here. So you want to question, where in the world is it exactly safe? I think it points to a lot of issues that have come up in recent years: connectivity, the advancement of technology, and the fact that it's just becoming very challenging for any government to get a good firm hold of their security.
The syndrome is described as a mystery brain illness. So what do we actually know about it?
A lot of the science researchers are saying that there are some signs that point to radioactive microwaves that are being pulsed and causing these illnesses. But it's very difficult to really pinpoint and directly link these waves to some of the cognitive and the physiological signs that we're seeing in the patients or the people who are affected. We've sort of danced around who the culprits may be, and the United States government is thinking it's probably Russia. But again, for XYZ reasons, security reasons, policy considerations, it's very sensitive. We're speculating, and we have a hunch as to what might be causing this and who might be behind this, but we're not really explicitly stating it.
But with the intention of doing what and achieving what?
Initially, I think they were planning to, or they're trying to use these waves to collect information from cell phones and other electronic materials. But I think along the way, there's this collateral damage where those who have been exposed to these pulsed waves start to get sick. So while they're collecting and extracting information, intentionally or not, they're also hurting physically the targets and the subjects of their, I guess, the adversary country. So, whether this was intended or not, it's basically like, killing two birds with one stone. And it's a pretty effective way, I would say, from any adversary's perspective. You're pressuring Washington's decision makers to either pull out your employees from this country or this region, to reduce their operational activities and their collection activities. This says a lot about the diplomatic footprint, but it also says a lot about whatever the decision makers decide to do, whether it's to keep their employees there or to pull them back, says a lot about their priorities, but also how they view their relationship with this quote-unquote adversary or suspected country.
That was former CIA analyst Sue Kim.
Extracting information.
Time now for the latest sports news, and here's Paul Sarah.
No, it's not.
The South African Louis Westhuizen has a one-shot lead over Colin Morikawa of the USA going into the final round of golf's Open Championship.
Come on, thumbs up. So you can do more of what you like. Pizza, surfer. And save big while you're at it. Money bag, flying dollar bills. So if data overage fees are making you frowny face, switch to Freedom and get a plan you'll love, face with hearts for eyes. Geez, whoever wrote this really had a feel.
African companies across various industries access China as a source of supplies, while at the same time assisting Chinese enterprises with a Go Global agenda to enter the African market. When it comes to Chinese business people, they look at Africa and they see problems that they can't provide solutions for. Is that reciprocal? Are there some problems in China that you think they're unique to China but can have a...
So all these people in the slums all over the world are going to have 5G cell phones watching your dumbasses playing the games you're playing, forgetting that all the rest of the world can see you now. You're going to miss that part when it creeps up on you.
Because that would be clearly wrong. China is a country of 1.4 billion people.
That's 1.5, but oh, this is like a year too old. It used to be countries like Canada, at least here in Toronto, we have access to like cable, satellite, internet, everything. Whatever data source is out there, undersea cable or microwave antenna or satellite dish or whatever, we have it here. So we see everything coming from everywhere else. But that doesn't mean all those people, like, if you're in the slum in Africa and somebody waves a camera around, you don't see all of us seeing you. But that's changing now.
How we can deal with it, and one of it is, the fast-changing Chinese macroeconomy and the fast-changing technology. We are trying to understand how does this affect our business, because the way we're operating today is not going to be the way we're operating 5 years, 10 years down the line. So I think actually the biggest issue in China is an issue of technology. The technology is changing really fast, and we really need to be on top of it to understand what this means.
Now, Kamal has also, I read this somewhere, that your company supports Chinese companies with a Go Global agenda to enter the African market. Can you expound on that a little bit more?
Can you repeat that title?
When we engage with Chinese companies, whether they're suppliers, whether they're importers, whether they're investors, they're looking to go overseas. Ever since the late 90s, Chinese government developed the Going Global initiative, which has now morphed into also the private sector. So one example I would use is we have some very good suppliers. They have supplied our clients, but they want to go into a new market. They want to enter this country X, but they don't know anybody there. They don't speak that language. They don't know what the regulations are in that country. So they want to understand more how they can they can enter that market. So we assist them in this market entry.
I've met a few, if not many, African students who everybody seems to have this dream of at some point getting into business and starting a business here.
So all the poor people, there's no extreme poverty in China anymore, officially. All the poor people in China have the same access to technology that a lot of the people in Africa already have, and they're cutting everybody else right out of the supply chain.
I think Lonnie Pike's gonna be.
So, it's like 6:30 in the morning in Congo, but it's like 1:30 in the afternoon in China. No, that doesn't make sense. Whatever. I don't want to hear gunstorm.
And asked to show them their performance.
We hadn't known what to expect. It was amazing to see it. It was 300,000 people that were there with their...
L'urbanisation implique bien sûr des questions d'énergie, sur l'éclairage par exemple, et sur tous les matériaux de construction qui doivent devenir neutres sur le plan carbone. Et c'est ce qui est en train d'arriver. Il y a plusieurs solutions comme ça qui sont labellisées par la Fondation Solar Impulse et je suis très heureux que France Info en parle.
Sur franceinfo.fr, vous trouverez toute la technique de l'éclairage bioluminescent et le béton bio.
L'Empire des séries maintenant avec Laurent Vallière. Cette semaine, Laurent nous conseille les meilleures séries policières. Et en matière de polar, les Scandinaves ont du talent. C'est même un style à part entière dans la série qu'on appelle le scandinoir. Et la série Bond illustre bien une création suédo-danoise.
C'est la nuit sur le pont métallique de l'Uresund qui sépare Malmö de Copenhague et relie le Danemark et la Suède.
C'est bizarre, il s'est éteint. Le pont s'est éteint.
Soudain, les lumières s'éteignent durant 48 secondes. Lorsqu'elles se rallument, le corps tranché en deux d'une femme politique est découvert sur l'exacte ligne de la frontière.
Lower value added products such as textiles. Countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Vietnam, Myanmar, their chemical industries. India, Turkey is giving a lot of competition. They're offering a challenge. So it depends on the product, it depends on the industry. But at the same time, high-value technology, developing train systems. So China is looking to compete with Western countries. They're not looking to compete with necessarily other developing countries.
Right. And finally, Kamal, we've been talking about the name of your company. We've mentioned it a few times now. What does the acronym stand for?
Kamal originally used to stand for China Africa Merchants Advisors Limited, but we figured that name is too long, so we just use the acronym now.
Okay, Walter, thank you so much again for joining us today, and all the best.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it from this week's edition of My China Story. Thanks for joining us. Tune in again next week, same time, when I bring you yet another conversation with foreign individuals living or traveling around the Middle Kingdom. To listen to this and other previous episodes, subscribe to our podcast by typing in
Is it Otto Warmbier and the two Michaels or something? Oops, never mind. I want that ringtone.
It's 5:30 GMT. This is Weekend from the BBC World Service. Still to come, political turmoil in Cuba. Do recent protests point to moves towards lasting change in the Caribbean island nation? And we hear from an Italian journalist and football fan who was conflicted watching last weekend's Euro 2020 final. That's all on Weekend with me, Julian Warwick, after the latest world news.
BBC News. The United States says Iran's latest comments about the delay to talks aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal are an outrageous effort to deflect blame. Tehran said earlier that Washington had to stop linking the nuclear deal with an exchange of prisoners, adding the talks had to wait until President-elect Ebrahim Raisi took office next month. Residents in the regions of Germany and Belgium worst affected by catastrophic flooding have begun the huge task of cleaning up their neighbourhoods as the waters begin to recede. Emergency workers and volunteers are continuing to search for the missing. More than 170 people are known to have died. Landslides caused by heavy rains in the Indian city of Mumbai have killed at least 18 people. 12 of the victims died when a compound wall collapsed on their homes in Mumbai's Chembur area. There were other fatalities in the city's Vikhroli suburb. Afghan peace talks continue for a second day today in the Gulf state of Qatar as the violence intensifies across Afghanistan. The Afghan State Minister for Peace, Syed Mansour Nadiri, told the BBC that he hoped both sides would clarify their ideas on key issues to help set a roadmap for a political solution to end the war. 2 athletes at the Tokyo Olympic Village have tested positive for coronavirus 5 days before the start of the Games. Organisers say they are from the same team and sport as the official who tested positive on Saturday. The team hasn't been identified.
See, I'm smart enough to be stupid. He said the Gulf state of Qatar, like he said, for a second I thought he meant a state within Afghanistan. Yet they have provinces, don't they?
Projects in Beijing and nearby Yanqing have been finished. The Games start in February. And 4 people have been wounded in a shooting outside the Nationals Park baseball stadium in Washington, D.C. The incident led to the cancellation of a baseball game that had been in progress. BBC News.
Hey, wait, what? You can't cancel a game.
You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm Julian Warwick with Weekend, and I have 2 guests with me for the rest of the programme to offer their perspectives on the news and the talking points of the day. Motoko Rich is a journalist, a New York Times Tokyo bureau chief, and is on the line from there. Motoko, welcome to the programme. Good morning.
Hello, thanks. Right away. I was just getting my husband's supper.
Thank you.
Ancient architecture. She then shows the class a short video about Beijing's Forbidden City. This gives the youngsters a taste of all the different types of media available.
You watch Japanese cartoons from China?
5 years ago. ago, moved to Tokyo.
We'll talk more about the stint in Tokyo a little bit later, and unsurprisingly, Japan will appear in the news at various points over the next couple of hours. But the appeal of journalism for you is what? It's the understanding of something and then the communicating of it? How do you break it down?
Well, I'm a very nosy person, but I'm also a bit of an introvert. And so journalism is kind of a sanctioned way for introverts to ask nosy questions of all kinds of people. And people are often very...
Yeah, you're washing money away, so to speak, if you don't have the latest updates and the ability to, continually refine that process, which quite often times requires good connectivity. My understanding of some of that machinery as well is that the applications that it can run on are cloud-based, and you're trying to upload a bunch of data to a cloud-based software, and the current state of a lot of rural connectivity is not sufficient to be able to do that. So,
well, it doesn't work when it takes 4 days, right?
Yeah, or whatever, right? Exactly. Yeah, it becomes irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't even understand how that family would do business in that world. So boy, oh boy, I don't think I ever understood, David, the broadband internet should be a right. I mean, that's the simple language that gets tossed about, and I'm kind of like,
who said I was standing on a lot of dirt came with it? Oh, honey, it was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. That creek right there must be full of gold because the vein leads right into it. I bet we're going to be rich. Tom, I just can't believe it. Wish that man hadn't come. We can't talk about it in front of him until you get the clean fire. Well, you better get back in the cab.
Bye.
Well, yes, I increasingly came to feel that actually, as a child, as a young person, I kind of identified with the Greeks and the Romans. But the more I've studied them, the more I've written about them, the more I've come to realize that actually they are kind of terrifyingly alien in many ways. And so my more recent work has been focused on how basically we in the West have changed and evolved. And I think that we live in a deep, profoundly Christian culture, even now.
Architectural models we use tend to be westernized, but our teacher uses PowerPoint to illustrate Chinese architectural elements. That's how she combines the two.
你觉得上这种课程的自动课跟你在线上，你比较喜欢哪个？
Do you prefer this more traditional type of classroom lecture compared to learning online?
我还是喜欢传统的，比较有气氛嘛，因为有那么多人。
I prefer the traditional style. I'm in a learning atmosphere since there's a lot of people around. If you're at home on your own, taking online classes, there's just not the kind of atmosphere there is in.
Please. Greyhorn, but here is something from Antonio Carlos Jobim, and joining Joe, Herbie Hancock on piano, Christian McBride bass, Jack DeJohnette on drums, Joe on tenor for No More Blues.